Coming up on this week's Gadget Show Web TV, John's reviewing the brand new iPod Nano. I take a look at the upcoming game Enslaved Odyssey to the West and bring you this week's best tech news. Hello and welcome to this week's Web TV. Coming up, I take a look at Namco's upcoming title, Enslaved Odyssey to the West. But first up, John's been out and about enjoying his music collection on the brand new iPod Nano. But with its new small touchscreen, is it still as easy to use as the classic Nano we all know and love?
Apple's latest 6th generation Nano is a bit of a break with Nano tradition. It's no longer a mini iPod Classic with a click wheel. Instead, it's a stamp-sized touchscreen with a clip on the back. And it's not just the click wheel that's gone. There's no contacts, there's no calendar. Compared to the last Nano, you can't shoot videos, you can't even view videos. What you get instead is a sort of mini version of the touchscreen interface you get on an iPod Touch or an iPhone. It's no iOS, you can't actually download apps, but what you get instead is an extremely controllable touchscreen interface for something of this size. It's very logical, very well thought out, and you can actually view album artwork quite well even on this mini screen. The sound quality is pretty good without being exceptional. It's certainly improved over the 5th generation Nano, and they've also kept some of the features. It's still got an FM radio, the only iPod to have one, and it has RDS and the useful live pause facility. And crucially, the reception has improved considerably over the 5th generation Nano radio, although it's not perfect. And you can still view photos on the tiny screen if you want to. Plus, there's a simple pedometer, which by and large seems to work well. The battery life should be good. They're claiming 24 hours of music playback. Rather confusingly, this isn't an on-off button. All it does is send the iPod to sleep, and it remains in a sleep condition for 35 hours before switching off completely. Now, when I first got this Nano, I found the battery consumption in sleep was rather severe. I sent it to sleep with about half a battery remaining, and when I returned to it to switch it on, after a few hours, the battery had almost completely exhausted. Now, I haven't been able to replicate that, but there has been quite a lot of chat on forums about sleep battery life issues on the new Nano. Whatever, I'm sure they'll address it with a software update. I don't think it's actually a hardware problem. It doesn't have a huge capacity, just 8 or 16 gigabytes, and it is very expensive for what it is. There are alternatives available that do most of what this does for a fraction of the price, and they don't involve the inconvenience of using iTunes. Overall, though, I rather like the new Nano. It offers the convenience of a clippable shuffle with a much more controllable interface, if you're rich.
Right, news time now, and first up, Nintendo has finally announced the release date of its 3DS games console, and it's said to hit UK stores in March next year. The news was announced at a Japanese press conference, which was also showcasing 3DS games titles, including Animal Crossing, Ocarina of Time, Metal Gear Solid and Paper Mario. Obviously, the release date will be gutting to some gamers who are hoping to get their hands on the 3D games console by Christmas, as it was rumoured that Nintendo would release the 3DS as early as October. And it looks like Nintendo's hometown of Japan will also miss out on a Christmas release, with the console hitting their shelves on February 26. As for cost, it looks set to be priced at 25,000 yen in Japan, which works out at about £189. European prices have yet to be confirmed, but it's unlikely to be a direct conversion price. But fingers crossed, it won't be set at much more. Next up, another rival to Apple's iPad has just been announced, the BlackBerry Playbook. The much-rumoured device will be running full Flash 10.1 and HTML5. It has a 1024 by 600 WSVGA 7-inch screen and a chassis a mere 10mm thin. And the Playbook has some serious power with a 1GHz Cortex A9 dual-core CPU from ARM, 2 rear-facing cameras that can support 1080p HD movie recording, HDMI connectivity and even USB slots. It will be compatible with all the current apps available for BlackBerry smartphones, and like the iPad, more will be released designed specifically for the new device. The first version of the Playbook will come with Bluetooth and Wi-Fi connectivity, but sadly will only be able to connect to 3G via a BlackBerry smartphone. The UK release for the BlackBerry Playbook is the second quarter of 2011, with the US getting it at the beginning of the year, but sadly there's no word on pricing just yet. Right, Right, it's that time of year again when all the big games titles are hitting the market in the fight for your cash. But there's one title that stands out of the crowd for me, and that's Enslaved, Odyssey to the West. Why? Well, it's co-written by Alex Garland, the writer of my favourite horror movie, 28 Days Later. Andy Serkis provides the motion capture and the voice for the main character. And if that wasn't enough, the music is by critically acclaimed composer Nitin Sawhney. And with these guys joining forces, it makes the game a very interesting prospect. So I took some time out of the office to go and quiz them about why they decided to get involved in the project. So, Tameem, tell us about Enslaved, Odyssey to the West and the people that you pulled together to create the special narrative and the realism.
I mean, Enslaved is actually based on Monkey. Like, if you're over 30, you'll remember the TV series. But I've discovered that that's actually based on a 400-year-old Chinese novel.
Yeah.
And it's about two characters, Monkey and Tripitaka. And so what we thought was, let's do a drama. Let's do an actual character drama between two people over the course of this massive adventure. Because you don't get that in games, you get that in films.
Yeah.
And to do that, you need good actors. Andy's the most prominent motion capture actor and one of the greatest character actors we have.
Now, we all know you from your motion capture work from Lord of the Rings and King Kong, but how does the motion capture experience differ in games, if at all?
It doesn't really. I mean, I think that's one of the points about it, is it's not just about recording motions, it's about an actor's performance, and that actor's performance obviously includes their voice. So it's not going into a booth and recording dialogue separately. It's in effect, performance capture is another way of filming a scene.
What's the basic premise of the game?
The basic premise is it's set 150 years in the future, a post-apocalyptic world, and this young girl called Trip is basically trying to get back to her community where she was brought up. It's called Enslaved because she needs someone to help her get back to her community, and that person is a character called Monkey, who's a sort of a loner, a survivor who just very much keeps himself to himself and has no kind of social interaction skills.
It's really interesting to see that relationship between each other, because sometimes when you play games you are the lone character and you've got your mission that you've got to do, and it's quite nice to see the sort of element of teamwork, I guess.
Yeah. So in gameplay-wise, they can't do this thing without each other, because he's the violent brute. He's the mech basher. And although she's not a fighter, she's like tech savvy. She can do a lot of stuff that he can't. And so the game becomes a kind of like a puzzle where, she does her bit, you do your bit, and you've got to work together to overcome the odds.
I was playing Monkey in this as well, so I was on the set a lot of the time. We'd block the scenes together and talked about it with the actress Lindsay who was playing Trip. And then we'd perform the scenes until we felt that they were starting to work, and then me and Tameem would sit back and watch on the monitors, watch the performance, and then if we were happy with the performances, we'd move on.
We wanted to make the game feel like you're playing through a movie. Like a big action movie, and so we got a screenwriter in Alex Garland, who's actually a big gamer, and he just wanted to make a game. And then Nitin Sawhney, we worked on our last project, who's done scored lots of movies and things, and so it's a bit of a dream team. It's very rare that you get kind of people from all these different industries working together. So
gaming is obviously realising now that there is an avenue that it can walk down in terms of interactive storytelling, and I have become very interested in it because I think it's a vitally important part of the next generation of storytelling. Up to this point, performance capture has been used traditionally in films, but not. I mean, motion capture has been used in games obviously for a long time, but more as a simulation tool. But this is actually about creating chemistry between performers and actors.
A bit more realism and a bit more narrative to get sucked into, rather than just getting character from point A to point B. You can really get lost in it.
When you do concentrate just on performance, you're not thinking about, well, I need a wide shot here and a close up here, and you can do that afterwards. But then other people like to work in different ways. I mean, some directors prefer to actually choose the shots as they're going along, so you're working more in a conventional filming sense.
So definitely not the end of the road for you in games here.
No, absolutely. Only the beginning, the very tip of it. And I have my own performance capture studio here in London called the Imaginarium, which is absolutely geared towards storytelling in games, and something that I'm very interested in and will continue to do so.
Well, fabulous. Can't wait for the next one. Thank you very much. Right, that's all we've got time for this week, but I'll be back next week with more news and reviews. Don't forget to catch the main show Monday night at 8 on 5, because this week, Polly and Otis go head-to-head in the challenge to find out if the cloud really is the computing of the future. Jason argues the pros and cons of 3D TV with John, Susie heads to Canary Wharf to check out the best pay-as-you-go phones for under 50 quid, and John heads to the RoboCup at Home competition to check out the best in home robotics. It's definitely an episode not to miss, but from me at Web TV, it's bye for now.